Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to First Seed Fantasy, the First Seed Fantasy podcast. I am Kyle Krajewski, joined by my good friends Mike Del Corso and Zachary Cole. Welcome, guys. We're here. Week one is basically upon us. What are the vibes? What are you guys feeling?
Dude, a little bit anxious, a little bit excited. All that hard work in the summer really about to either pay off or really just take a dump. So I'm really excited, man. Week one, here we go.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. We're recording this on Wednesday, and I've spent all day today thinking that it was Thursday and looking forward to the game tonight. And every time I convince myself that it's not Thursday, it seems like my brain just wants to go back to it. So I guess I'm excited to say the least. So
Well, Zach, it is game night because we're here, and anytime I'm talking to you, it feels like a game just because you
you
keep it
know
interesting.
it.
All right. Without further ado, let's get into it. Week one, it's been a long journey, fellas, and it's finally here. But without further ado, I'm presenting, I guess, a dilemma, a situation, and I'm kind of phrasing it as like our must-watch situations for the week one, the NFL season, for several reasons. Maybe there are starters that haven't earned their spot yet, or there are backfields that are just still a huge question mark, whether it's a timeshare, if it's one guy, or if it's 45-55. But I'm going to kick it off, and we're going to chat about our favorite backfield that we have no idea what's going on. And maybe we'll figure out what's going on week one, and that is New England. I think if you had asked me 4 months ago, it was Damian Harris's backfield, and we'd see little sprinkles of Ramondre Stevenson. But I feel like all camp, it's just kind of been Ramondre hype and just a 50-50 chats. What are you guys feeling? What do you guys think about this?
This is an interesting one. Like you said, months on months ago, everybody was going to say Damian Harris. It was a no brainer. It's interesting because Ramondre is now in the conversation, and it's not coming from the coaching staff. All the Ramondre hype is really coming from fans and analysts saying that he's great, he's going to have a role, and there's been rumors within the organization, but there hasn't been any pure statement from anybody on the coaching staff that this is going to happen. In fantasy drafts as well, they're both going right around the eighth, ninth, 10th round, and they usually go back to back. In some drafts, Stevenson goes first. Earlier on in the year, Harris was going first, obviously. But very, very interesting. I've always been a huge Harris believer since he came in the league. I mean, last year, if you look at those numbers right there on the screen, he was putting up running back 14 numbers in PPR. And I think the max catches he had a game was maybe one or two. He wasn't even catching passes. He strictly did that from the ground. So I am still pro Damian Harris in this backfield, but very interesting, and I'm very excited to see what happens in week one here.
It's a tricky situation, and even I think just the hype about Ramondre has just kind of made me steer completely away from Damian Harris, where he could still have 12 touchdowns, and I'm just not interested.
Right, right. I could see it like you guys said, like this could easily be a very even split towards the end of the year. Even at the beginning, it's kind of like it's all these rumors going around. No coach has said anything, and we all know Belichick isn't too good with giving you accurate information. But if we're gonna include the rumors with Stevenson, there was also some rumors with Montgomery saying that he was going to be the pass catching back out of that offense and that he was running on third downs and short yardage. So he's hurt right now. So I believe that's why you're starting to get more hype for just Stevenson in general because he would be the pass catching back over Harris. So yeah, very interesting to see. Some I'm definitely keeping an eye on.
Yeah, it's tricky, but that's why we're amped for week one because as many questions as we have now, I think week one will kind of clarify a good chunk of that. And Zach, right before we kind of jumped into recording, you mentioned you listed off a few backfields that this muddied situation kind of exists where week one could clarify that or muddy it plenty more.
Yeah, and I think before we get into this, just if you were one of these people that took a flyer on these guys in the late round, kudos to you, because you could have ended up with a starting running back that maybe people were overlooking, or they were taking the other running back in the third or fourth round. So I guess to start it off, I'll use that exact example. One of the teams that I like to think of in this scenario is the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have Travis Etienne, who's coming off of injury. They have James Robinson, who's also ironically coming off of injury. But James Robinson has been great for them the last couple seasons. But moving forward, ETN was supposed to be the guy because Robinson was coming back from the Achilles injury. But now we're getting all this news that right there you can see in the latest news column here. All right, it says James Robinson could have a big role. So I think that as much as people want Travis Etienne to be the guy and be this PPR superstar, I think people are almost trying to hype him up to Christian McCaffrey levels of reception, running back combo. I think we have to pump the brakes a little bit because Robinson is definitely here to stay. Another situation where this very similar kind of thing is happening is the Seattle Seahawks with Rashad Penny and Kenneth Walker. Penny has kind of taken the leg up in the preseason, and I know that we're all pretty big Penny supporters here. Yes, right? Yes.
Oh, big
Go
Penny
Penny.
fan.
Yeah, and I mean Penny was the you can see he's still the clear lead back. It says there in the latest news, but Kenneth Walker, who just had a hernia and had surgery to remove it, is now starting to come back into the equation. So that was another running back, or that's another backfield that's kind of murky, and we're not necessarily sure, what the outcome is going to be. And then the last one, and this will kind of be a preview of my start and sit going on later on here is the New York Jets with Brees Hall and Michael Carter. Brees Hall is a rookie. He's shiny. He's fancy. I mean, he was an absolute monster in college, but the coaching staff has come out and said that Michael Carter could potentially be the dude in week one. So I think it just really goes these running back rooms and these situations where there's more than one guy, you kind of have to pump the brakes a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm rambling here, but another one just popped in my mind with Akers and Henderson in Los Angeles as well. That one's probably the murkiest of all because both of them are high caliber running backs and have put up great seasons in the past. You just don't know who is going to be the guy there. So I'm going to just kind of pass it off to you guys. Which of those situations do you? I guess we'll say, do you feel the worst about going into week one? Which leaves you with the most questions?
Whew. Kyle, you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, I think the one that I have the absolute most questions about is probably the Jets backfield with Michael Carter and Brees Hall. Just because it's kind of the same with Seattle and kind of a rookie coming in and you don't know his true role, especially with kind of an established, I guess you can call Rashad Penny the established running back. I guess you could say the same thing for Carter, but I feel like the Jets backfield is like two new guys, two fresh faces, both of them still kind of trying to figure out their role in this offense and in the league. And the Jets are just kind of being like, yeah, whichever one's better. And that could be a difference any given down. And who knows what they're going to do, what their plan is. Maybe Michael Carter catches the most passes. Maybe Brees Hall is the between the tackles guy. Who knows? It's going to be, this is going to be a huge question mark to me. And it's honestly a backfield. All of these backfields I've kind of steered away from just because of those big question marks. And that's kind of why I'm excited for the season to start because we'll finally have some answers. But I feel like by week 8, we're still going to have several questions about the Jets backfield.
Oh, definitely. And honestly, the Jets would have been my pick as well. That's just something that it just doesn't sit right with me, especially on top of everything that they're on a bad football team. I really don't like that combo. But yeah, on top of that, I'll focus on the Rams just a little bit here. Henderson had a great year last year as that lead back. Absolutely came in and took that role by the horns and ran with it. He had a phenomenal year. Obviously, towards the end of the year, didn't play as much. But yeah, and then Akers comes back for the playoff / Super Bowl last year. And obviously, he came back a lot earlier than people would expect you to with that injury. But he did look slow. He looked slower. And you could tell that Henderson had the burst. He had the juice, just watching them play. So that's another backfield I'm kind of staying away from. Akers was being drafted in like the 4th, 5th round. Henderson was like 9th, 10th, and on. And for most of these guys, it was really the same. Even the Jets, Brees Hall was being drafted in the 4th round. Michael Carter was like 8, 9, 10. And it makes you think, like, was the better value 5, 6 rounds later, or was it the guy that you reached for? So I could proudly say I don't have any shares of any of the 4 guys on the screen right now, because that's just not something I would want to go into the year with. But yeah, very shaky situations there, and week one's going to be interesting.
It's going to be a blast. All right, and then kind of my last on my list of these. Oh no, we've got a few more. What am I talking about? We just kicked this off. Next on our list of watch lists, for me at least, and I know Zach's got opinions on this too, and definitely Mike because he's got a hatred for the quarterback. But the Denver Broncos target share and what the heck that could look like. Because I think all season it's kind of been like, yeah, it's Cortland Sutton's team, or we think it's Cortland Sutton. But truthfully, we don't know. We don't know who's going to be that lead target receiver to Russell Wilson because we know whoever it is going to ball out. And I think because we don't know is why in draft rooms they're being drafted in the same round or like in the same like 8 picks because nobody knows. Where Judy probably has the higher ceiling where it's like if he's getting the ball, he's going to explode. Where Sutton probably has the higher probability to be the guy. And it's really tricky and it's just hard because I can't tell you. I can tell you I think it's going to be Sutton, but who knows? Maybe Monday night we watch Jerry Judy get 20 targets for some reason. So that's my thoughts on who Mike calls Bumboy Russ is thrown to.
Bumboy Russ, man, he gets worse every day. Speaking of that, I think I actually have Russ as my 5th or 6th QB for week one. So don't take the hate too serious, guys. I don't like him, but he is a great quarterback, and he will be good in fantasy this year. My quick thoughts on the Broncos wide receivers core is I would say about 4 or 5 months ago, my favorite wide receiver value on the Broncos was actually Tim Patrick before he got hurt. This was a guy that was being drafted way past both of these guys and was guaranteed just to be a solid flex guy. He showed it basically all year last year, and you had to play him on the right weeks as always. But with the upgraded QB, I was really excited to draft Tim Patrick in the 10th round and later, just as that extra like high upside kind of guy. But yeah, I'm right with you, Kyle. I can see Judy being the lead guy here. I think Cortland Sutton has a little bit more of a route tree to him and can do a little bit more with the deep ball. But I could see Jerry Judy doing just about everything underneath and basically like 90% of what Sutton can already do on the outside. So, yeah, this is a tough one. This could go either way. I feel more confident with choosing the last groups of running backs that we were talking about, picking one of those guys than picking one of these guys here. This to me is very close, and I know they were being drafted kind of similar to each other, right around that 4th, 5th, 6th round, and some. So yeah, this is a tricky one. My vote would be Sutton, but I would not count Jerry Judy out. That's for sure.
I think my target share, or I'm sorry, my ownership percentage of these guys, or my roster percentage of these guys, is kind of what speaks to my beliefs on them. I have Cortland Sutton on about 4 or 5 out of my 10 fantasy teams this year. I love Cortland Sutton. I think that he is the alpha in this offense. I think that he's going to demand all the targets. If we equate the Broncos situation to what Russ was working with in Seattle, I think Sutton is DK Metcalf, and I think Judy is Tyler Lockett. I'm not counting Judy out, but I think he's going to be the type of guy that's going to have those weeks of 40 points or those weeks of 3 points. And I personally just want the guy that's going to be ultra consistent. I want the red zone target. So if you just click over to Sutton's profile there, you can see that Jerry Judy is 6'1", 193, and Sutton is 6'4", 216. He's bigger bodied. He's going to demand more targets. I just think that Sutton has what it takes to be a 1, and Judy is more of a slot too. That's just kind of where my opinion is. I know they might play them both outside, but that's just kind of the way that I'm looking at it. Before the show, we kind of likened it. We likened Judy to a Devontae Smith for the Eagles, that guy who's going to be a really really solid number 2 option. But I just think that Sutton here is the alpha, and I would be remiss if I didn't shout out KJ Hamler too, who I think if you haven't drafted yet is a great late round sleeper, especially with Tim Patrick going down, like Mike alluded to. This guy is going to be a huge slot presence. Kyle, if you go back to 2020, I think he had a couple nice weeks in 2020. I mean, nothing crazy, but you got to remember he was a rookie this year, and to be able to put up a couple 10-point performances, there's a 22 in there. I like him. I think he's going to be very, very useful to Russell Wilson, especially as just like a dump and run guy. So,
yeah, KJ Hamler to me was the best late or last round pick that you can make, and that's why in the league currently on the screen I have him, because I think he will have that wide receiver. He has it. He's the wide receiver 3 in this offense, and I'm not to say we haven't seen it before, but Sutton and Judy don't have the cleanest of health records.
mm-hmm.
And it's not out of this world to think that by week 4, KJ Hamler is the wide receiver 2 on this team. And maybe that's just by talent. Who knows? The NFL is weird like that sometimes. But that's my thoughts on how the heck how we don't know who the heck Russ is going to throw to this season.
Hey, Kyle, really quick here. Can you scroll up on the stat sheet just a little bit there? Okay, I had a feeling. So this is Hamler's third year in the league, and the man's only 23 years old. That kind of blew my mind a little bit there. Young guy.
Definitely young.
Yeah, and that also kind of segues into what we're going to talk about next year, with some young receivers with great quarterbacks, with targets to go around, kind of. And that's the Packers receivers. This is
Great
another
segue.
group of receivers that we kind of are having trouble kind of breaking down. Lazard, without a doubt, is the number 1 going into the year. But dealing with an injury right now. So it kind of spices some things up. We're going to be looking in week 1 for a little bit of Lazard, Romeo Dobbs, as you see that Kyle put on the screen there. Another guy, you got Sammy Watkins in the mix. And then you also have the rookie Watson, who just got back to practicing about a week ago, and is starting to get in the groove of things. These are 4 guys that, I mean, honestly, I would say more so Watson and Watkins. That's a funny one. Are very similar in the way they play, kind of just like strictly outside guys. Lazard is kind of like that little bit of everything guy. He is a taller dude, but I have seen him play in the slot when he was with Devontae and stuff last year as well. So that's going to be interesting. With the injury to Lazard, who do you guys see coming out of this wide receiver core, and who do you think is going to have the best impact right away?
I still think it's Lazard. I think if anything, Watkins has his typical 30-point week 1 and then disappears for the season. But aside from that, I think this is Lazard's team. And I think just listening to Aaron Rodgers talk about his wide receivers, it's almost like he loves them one day and hates them the next. But anybody except for Alan Lazard, the dude just loves the guy. I think he's called him a future Hall of Famer already. And
Wow.
to have that trust and love from Aaron Rodgers it goes a long way as a wide receiver. And he may just be talking out of his ass, and he probably is. But odds are, if he likes you as a receiver, you're going to be his favorite target. He's going to keep you happy on the field, and I think this is Lazard's team.
I'm going to give a really pessimistic outlook of this. I don't like this situation at all. And I think that there's a world where none of them are successful. And this whole experiment of testing how good Aaron Rodgers is just kind of fails. And the Packers wind up being 6-11 or 5-12, and they're just bad this year. I mean, it's been an ongoing kind of meme that they just don't help Aaron Rodgers and give him any targets in Green Bay through the draft, and I think that that's finally going to catch up to the Green Bay front office. I do like Lazard, but I think he's the kind of guy that's going to have, 5 or 6 big games during the year, and he's not going to be that Devontae Smith I'm sorry, not Devontae Smith, Devontae Adams every single week, huge production type of guy. The only guy that I really do like in this offense is actually a guy coming off of an ACL tear, and that's tight end Robert Tunyon. I love the chemistry that he and Rogers had when they were on the field together. I'm sorry, Kyle, I'm making you do more work here,
No.
but he's starting to come back. He tore his ACL in week 8 of last year, so he's starting to make his way back. I mean, I don't really love his outlook for the first couple weeks while he's starting to get the ball rolling again, but I think that he's going to settle in, and I could see a world where he's Rodgers' top target moving forward this season. So I just kind of wanted to throw his name in the ring there as well.
No, yeah, that's a great point, and it's important too that we really do focus on like the trust aspect for Rodgers, because we all know watching him for years, he will not throw you the ball unless he absolutely trusts you, and kind
Yep.
of what Kyle said in the beginning as well. Especially with Romeo Doubs, it was like for the first week of camp he was phenomenal, and then the next week it was like, no, you need to step up, and you're not doing enough, and it was kind of this back and forth all off season. I think it's going to be so interesting in this offense, man, because like you said, Zach, if he doesn't trust Lazard, if they start off hot and then maybe Lazard gets a little slow, a little midseason like sluggish, what happens? Does he go to somebody else? Does he force feed Lazard and they end up taking games because of it? Like it gets bad.
Now,
Um, it's
do you,
it's going to
do
be
you
interesting.
guys, sorry, Mike, do you guys agree that there's a world where Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon are the top receivers for this team?
I
Ooh.
think there's definitely a world where Aaron Jones is the top receiver. Uh, just because I think Dylan has the ability to completely be the sole running back in this offense, kind of allowing Jones to make his way and maybe out wide, maybe in the slot, just kind of be able to run some routes and kind of catch more passes than expected.
Sort of like
Yeah.
a Jonathan Taylor, Naeem Hines situation almost. Have a pass catching
Yes.
guy and a between the tackles guy.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I would see it that way too. Jones, I could definitely see a world where that is the situation where he could be the actual lead receiver on the team. Um, Obviously, I think it's a small chance, but I do think that Jones could be that guy. And I'm also like, I just know it's going to happen. I do have a few shares of Doubs in the very like last rounds of my draft. I think he'll be big behind old man Cobb. Like if God forbid something happens to him, Dobbs would be the starting slot receiver with Rodgers, which is great. Um, but it's definitely going to be interesting too. There's just a lot of stuff that's going on, and Lazard is supposed to be the guy. And if he's not, I don't know what's going to happen there. And because of that, I kind of stayed away from this team as much as I could. But at the end of the day, it's Rodgers. I feel like no matter what, even if we do see this kind of new Aaron Rodgers this year, he's still going to get the ball to somebody he trusts, and we're just going to have to figure it out. So another week one thing just to hone in on, make sure we pay attention to, and maybe it shows in week one, maybe it shows in week 5.
Yeah,
This is
thanks,
one of those
Rogers. You're
long
really
ones.
making a you're really making us watch you play some football to figure out what the heck you want to do. Fellas, it's time. Unless you got other watches you have on your week one list other than
Oh,
every
it's
other
time.
game. Starts and sits, fellas. Time to chat about who the heck we're starting this week and who the heck we're sitting. And I'll start this off kind of saying these aren't necessarily put this guy strictly on your bench. This is maybe like think about it, or just kind of don't have high expectations for this guy this week. Just kind of be prepared. If we're sitting him, be prepared for the worst. And if we're starting him, you can kind of be like, okay, solid flex spot maybe. But Mike, I'm going to kick it to you. You've got a good start this week playing. I'm going to say tonight because we're releasing this on a Thursday.
Yeah. So my start for week one of the 2022 season is going to be Isaiah McKenzie. I really like the position he's in mostly. You obviously haven't seen a lot of the guy. Very briefly was mentioned during camp, and more so in the last week has a lot of talk about him and really having a role replacing that Cole Beasley role on the team, which I know that Josh Allen loved last year. He's an interesting guy. I think he's in a really good spot to succeed with Josh Allen. And in week one, they're going up against the Rams. So I expect big days from Diggs, obviously, and I know Ramsey's going to do what he can do to shadow him. I know it's really funny to say, but Ramsey's considered the best corner in the league, and he kind of got shooken up a little bit in the Super Bowl against Jamar Chase, and he had his hands full there. So I know Diggs is going to give him a little bit of trouble, but I expect big games from Gabe Davis on the other side, on the outside, and in the slot, Isaiah McKenzie. So if you're in a league with 3 wide receivers, maybe 4, I'm really excited to see what he could do. I think he's in a good spot.
Mike, that's a good one. I think I've told Zach this for years that I think Isaiah McKenzie and Gabe Davis could be the 2 and 3 in this offense outside of Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley, and they finally did it. So I'm next. My start of the week is good old Elijah Moore. I think they're facing it's the Ravens. I'm just confirming that. Yeah. Facing the Ravens, I think this is going to be I think they're going to be playing from behind a lot this week. I think Baltimore is going to kind of show up not fully healthy, but just kind of ready to play. So that just means on the offensive side of the ball for the Jets, they have to throw. They have to play a little bit of catch up. And I think I think last year he kind of balled out the most without Zach Wilson. So I think reports are saying that Zach Wilson is not starting week one, which basically shines the green light on Elijah Moore for me. He's going to get targets. He's the number one receiver in this offense. I think it's going to take Garrett Wilson a few weeks to kind of get his footing in the NFL, kind of like Moore did last year. But I think Moore kind of gets the targets from Flacco, has a solid week, and actually a very solid startable week. So give me some Elijah Moore.
Kyle, I love it. And look at the name up top, baby. You already know who has him.
I guess I'm going to complete the receiver trifecta here for starts, and I'm going to go with Christian Kirk from the Jacksonville Jaguars. The first reason that I love him, one, I'll shout out my guy, Johnny Jaguar. You know who you are. All right, if you're listening, shout out. But I love the matchup that he has in week one against the Washington, no longer football team, the Washington Commanders now, who happened to give up the 4th most passing yards in 2021. They have a very, very poor secondary, and I think that Kirk is poised to really kind of explode in this new offense. I think that last season we saw Trevor Lawrence was looking for a 1 all year. He was trying to figure out whether it was Chenault or whether it was, I think in the early season, Chark was still healthy, or whether it was Marvin Jones. He was just kind of digging, and they went out and they got him a 1 in Christian Kirk. They paid him tons and tons of money. I just love the situation, and I love the player here. I think that they're going to try to throw the ball all over the place on the Washington Commanders now. And there was actually a report that came out yesterday, or maybe it was even today, where Trevor Lawrence was speaking about how team morale is extremely, extremely high under Doug Peterson. So I'm looking for this team to come out fired up in week one. I even, I'll go ahead and say it. I would even throw a little bit of money on the Jaguars in week one. That's not something that you'll catch me saying a lot, but I think this team's going to come out playing inspired football, and I love Christian Kirk in week one. He's my guy.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right, Mike, kick us off with some sits.
All right. Yeah, we got our 3 solid starts of week one. I'm going to start it off with my sit, absolute sit. It's going to be J.K. Dobbins. So this is a running back that I absolutely love. He was a 5th round target for me, even with the injury. I kind of loved his presence, I think, in the second half of the year, and that's what I was most excited about. But coming off that injury, no really live reps, I'm not trusting him in week one. Mike Davis is there for a reason. I think it's going to be Mike Davis Day against the Jets. I honestly think any running back in that backfield against the Jets is going to succeed. But I am actually out on J.K. Dobbins. I'd rather wait a week or two to see him actually get the full workload and not split a backfield with Mike Davis, who I think will most likely have more touches than him based on what they're saying. So I'm out on J.K. Dobbins. Not out on him for the year. I still love him. I think he was still warranted as a fifth-round pick. But week one's a no-go. Let him heal. Let him get going. I like him in like week 2, week 3, week 4.
I was just going to chime in there, Mike. They also added Kenyon Drake this past week, which is just kind of all the more reason to expect that he might not in week one. And if he does, to definitely kind of push him down to your bench. So love it. Great sit.
I also want to mention in a press conference today or interview, Lamar Jackson just kind of offhand said, saying that Dobbins looks healthy, but he's just like, yeah, I'm excited to get him back on the field with us in a few weeks. And kind of him saying weeks when the season starts for them in days was a little worrying for me. So I think Dobbins is going to be a rocky player for a little bit for this early bit of the season. But moving on, I've got my sit of the week, and it's a little tricky. He may be kind of your fringe flex player out of the draft, and it's Tony Pollard. I think, they're playing Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay last season gave up the third least points to running backs, and that doesn't excite me. If I were really feeling bold, I'd say bench Ezekiel Elliott, but I'm not feeling that bold, so I'm going with. I'm not. I'm not. Don't you worry. I think Zeke's going to be having okay week. I also don't think you're drafting Zeke in the third round to bench him, not this early. But Pollard, I'm feeling okay benching, just because I think it's going to be a tough defense. This game is going to be an air game. I think these two kick off the season last year too.
Yes, they did.
They did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he didn't do much. 3 carries for 14 yards, 4 catches. Didn't do anything crazy.
Not a startable performance, and I think we're going to expect something similar. So feel free if you're looking for 6 to 8 points on your flex spot or your RB2, Tony Pollard's your guy. But if you want a little bit more upside, bench him, find another player.
I guess it's my turn to complete the trifecta one more time. I'm going to come at you guys with a running back here. My running back, who is my sit of the week, is actually Breece Hall. Breece Hall, we mentioned earlier on, he is in a timeshare now with Michael Carter, apparently, anyway. And I just don't like the murkiness of this backfield going into week one. And I'm not comfortable starting Hall, who, might I add, didn't look too great throughout the preseason. He looked kind of like he wasn't able to find the holes, a little sluggish. And I'm not saying, this isn't a year-long indication by any means. This is just for week one. I'm pumping the brakes on him, and I'm going to go ahead and put him on my bench for week one. He's playing the Ravens, as Kyle mentioned earlier, and Mike mentioned, with their Ravens and Jets picks. But the Ravens actually, I know I love bringing up 2021 defensive stats. The Ravens allowed the least rush yards in the whole entire league to opposing running backs. So it's just not a friendly defense to run a rookie running back up against. I just don't love the situation. I don't love the opposing team. I'm staying away. The Breece Hall is my sit.
Zach, that was beautifully put. Yeah, it's tricky. You drafted Breece Hall to kind of be a guy, be a starter for you. And that's the tricky thing coming into week one, where you have to make these decisions where not every player is going to be a great start every week. And that's honestly the beauty of fantasy football. And honestly, that's the beauty of us being here to help you. Fellas, unless you have anything else to say, I think I'm going to wrap this up for us.
Listen, I want to leave the video with this one thing here before we go. I absolutely love and I stick behind all 3 of our starts and sits, which usually doesn't happen. Sometimes we butt heads. I absolutely love them for week one. I want to end the video with a lock bet that I am so hyped about for week one, and it actually is the game tomorrow night, and it is the under in the first half. I am taking the under 28.5 on that game tomorrow night, and I am so pumped to let that rock and see how much money I can make from that. I'm telling you guys, ride that with me. Last year, the Rams and Bills both scored very little points in their first half of the first game of the season, and they're butting heads, man, and I am taking the under in the first half.
Mike, I'm riding with you. And for that, thank you for tuning in. You can follow us on Instagram at First Seed Fantasy, on Twitter at First Seed Sports, at our various Instagram and Twitter handles that you'll see if you're watching the video, or find it in the link in the description if you're listening. Thanks for tuning in. You can subscribe, like, follow, give us a heart, give us a thumbs up. Do it all. We love it. It supports us. And guys, it's week one. I'm amped, and we're here to help you. Don't forget, you can DM us, message us, comment. We'll help you out. We'll respond with trade questions, start sits. Let us know. Let us see those lineups. We want to help you out. So, without further ado, gentlemen, thanks for stopping by.
Absolutely. Good luck, guys.
Good luck.